Hey guys, this is June because I was born in June, and welcome to my amazing life today. So in today's topic, I'm going to explore with you how to stay optimistic. If let's say you're a pessimist all the time and you constantly worry about the worst thing is going to happen, I'm just going to share with you my tools to stay optimistic. So remember to stay tuned to the end. Welcome back to my amazing life. So if let's say you haven't get our free 30-day live video ideas, you can get it at link.junelo.co/free30 and also join our Facebook group at www.amazingstory.co to get more free training or video just like this. Alright, let's come back to the topic for today. So before we get started, I want you to rate yourself. Are you someone who is very pessimist or you're someone who is more optimist? Like if let's say 0 being super pessimistic and 10 being super optimistic, how would you rank yourself? And let me know your answer down below, right, in the comment section. So I'm just going to tell you guys my story and then how I actually come to talk about this topic. Okay, if let's say talk about maybe 15 years or 20 years ago, I was a little bit somewhat pessimist. I would rate myself about 3 to 4. If let's say I'm comparing myself as of now, I would say I am about 6 to 7 more optimistic. So how I actually make the transition for being pessimist and to optimistic, I actually would reference to some of the books that I read related to habits building. So I realized that I tend to have this habit of being pessimist. So whenever something came up like totally unexpected, I would prone to become a pessimist last time because I had this habit, and this habit was a very bad vicious cycle. So this was my habit. I thought like being a pessimist will make things better because I'm constantly thinking about it. So it means that I care about that item, and therefore I decided to become pessimist last time. And after I've been reading so many different books about habit building, only I realized, hey, being a pessimist wouldn't make the situation better. Although we know it via theory, but then I just couldn't relate to it. But then after I read the books related to habit, they said that if let's say you have these vicious cycles of habits of thinking pessimistically, you need to reframe them. So that's where I started to realize that, hey, I was in a loop, in a vicious cycle, thinking that being a pessimist will help me when they are not. So that's where I started to use few of these strategies that I'm going to discuss below, so that if let's say you feel like you're someone who is a little bit pessimistic, or you really think that June, you're really good at reframing any situation that happened to you. So stay tuned to this video, okay? So I will actually share about 3 tools that I read from different books so that you guys can implement as well. So the tip number 1 in turning yourself to become more optimistic is that whenever something that is totally unexpected happens to your life, whether it's your life, it's your work, it's your business, okay, that is one thing that I want you to prepare. I want you to write down the event that happened to you. What is the worst case scenario that can ever happen to you, right? For example, maybe that time during pandemic, the worst things that could happen to you is that you lose your business, right? Or maybe whenever something happened, like maybe your website is not functioning, the worst thing that can happen is that maybe you kind of like need to build a new website, okay? Something like that. I want to think about the worst case scenario. Of course, we're not going to stop there. The second thing is that after you have listed down every possible worst case scenario you can think of, I want you to start thinking about how can you improve the situation, right? For example, if let's say it's during pandemic, you're really afraid that you are going to lose your business, then thinking about things to improve is that maybe you can build another business, right? Or maybe you can always leverage on bank loans to improve the situation temporarily, right? Or maybe you can pivot your business to have another type of business model that you have never thought of, right? So I want you to write down all the things that you can brainstorm to improve the current situation that you're in, to improve the worst case scenario. Okay, here's the thing. Whenever your brain has already accepted what are the worst case scenario, you get the sense of calmness that you wouldn't find elsewhere, because a lot of times you're constantly worrying, you're being a pessimist, you're constantly worrying because you do not know, there are a lot of uncertainty. You kind of like do not know, will this happen or will that happen? So why not just write it down? This is the worst thing that is going to happen. So how can I improve it? So whenever you write it down, especially when you write it down and pen it down in journals, you get the sense of calmness that you can start thinking clearly. Otherwise, your mind will keep like wandering around what would be the worst case scenario. So just tell your brain to calm down by journaling down the worst case scenario and the things that you can do in order to improve the situation. All right. So the tool number two. The tool number two, it's super important. I forgot which book I read it about, but it's the ability to distinguish between, is the situation right now, what are the controllable elements and what are the non-controllable elements. All right, so let me repeat it. You need to be able to distinguish in your situation right now, which you think it is super bad, you're very pessimist about it. I want you to list down what are the things that you can control. All right, so because you need to know what are the uncontrollable elements, so that if you're being put in the situation, like for example, I'm just going to take the pandemic as an example, because this is where I realized, hey, I'm starting to tell like becoming an optimist person after the pandemic. Right? If let's say I make reference back to the pandemic, right? So the things that you can't control is the situation. Whether the government is going to go for a lockdown, or whether anything, this situation, the pandemic situation will be worsened, or anything else. These are the things that you can't control, right? It's not within what you are able to decide, right? What about the controllable element? So let's say you're running a business during the pandemic. The things that you can control is thinking about what other business model that you can pivot, right? Thinking about how to cut costs in your company. Like for example, are you subscribing to a lot of different software that you don't think you need it in that moment? So unsubscribe it. These are the things that you can control in cost cutting. How can you improve the situation by onboarding even more clients? Even though you can't do business right now during the pandemic, but what if you can introduce your solution to more different types of clients, where finally you have time to spend on yourself? Okay, so these are the things that you can control, and they are the things that you can't control. Remember, never ever spend time on things that you can't control, because you just can't control them, right? So that's why the ability to distinguish between controllable and non-controllable will help you to calm yourself down and turn yourself to become from pessimist to become optimistic. Because when your mind are constantly thinking about the things that you can control, you are taking actions to improve the situation, okay? And then eventually, everything will become like a self-fulfilling prophecy, where whatever you think it is, it will happen, okay? So which come back to the tool number three. Okay, the tool number three, let me have check. I forgot what I jotted down. Prevent. Alright, I remember. So this is a live, so that's what I do. Before I do it live every time, I'll just do some notes, but then my words were like constantly scribbling. So now I remember back what I meant. So when you want to prevent become a pessimist, right? Okay, we have one brain. Our brain cannot have two thoughts at the same time. For example, if I ask you to think about a song, and also I ask you to write a book, can you do two things at the same time? You probably can't, right? Okay, so that's how the brain functions. So knowing how the brain functions, which means that if let's say you want to stop yourself becoming a pessimist, want to become more optimistic, I want you to focus on taking actions, right? For example, maybe the situation is really bad right now. I want you to only focusing on one thought, how to improve the situation. Because when you think from this perspective, you wouldn't be spending your brain the time to worry about what will happen, just in case this happened and that happened. Make sense? So, or you want to occupy your brain. Like this is what I used to do. I also went exercising, learning something that is tough. Like for example, I think I wasn't good at dancing, so I signed up Zumba course, and at that time I was like really stressed. So but I realized that going Zumba is the one way to relieve my stress and turn myself to become more optimistic, is because the time that I spend, the 1 hour duration that I spend learning the Zumba, I don't have time to worry, right? I couldn't worry because my brain is constantly keeping on the teacher, learning all the dancing move. And I realized that was the 1 hour time that I finally able to de-stress and able to really focus my time, rather than focusing on the things that is not helping, like being a pessimist. it helped me to become a little bit more optimistic. So remember, every time you feel like you are thinking something that is bad, whenever you feel bad, most likely you are thinking something that is negative thoughts. That's where you need to direct your attention to something else, right? And the tool number 4, it's I always use, whether it's me, my family, and my friends, reframe the situation. Always remember, your interpretation of the event itself is neutral, because whether the glass is half full or half empty, it's really up to your interpretation. But you need to remember, reframe every situation that ever happened to you. Try to interpret in another way, that be it neutral or be it positive, so that you wouldn't constantly keep drilling on the bad events. Make sense? So whatever happens to you, remember, that's the best thing that can ever happen to you. So why not just accept it and accept the worst case scenario and try to think how you can improve the current situation that will serve you better. Alright? So I hope that this video convinced you and helped you. I share about 4 tools that can help you to turn yourself from being a pessimist to become an optimist. I am a person, you see, like, I'm really cheerful in the video and all sorts, but I used to be a pessimist, and sometimes even during my work I will also tend to become a pessimist sometimes. So what I need to do is always try to reframe back to situation, bring myself back to reality, knowing what is the worst case scenario that can ever happen to you, and then try to improve the situation. Alright, I hope that you guys loving this video. If let's say you're loving it, please leave me some comments down below of what you learned, so that you can motivate me to do more videos as such to you guys. So if let's say you've been wanting to do like live video just like me, you see, even I screw up my live video, I can still continue talking about it. If let's say you want to be able to learn from me and also learn become like my students, I have about 180 students, more than 180 students all around the world graduated from our signature program, 7-day amazing video challenge. If let's say you want to be able to create 7 videos in a week, this is a challenge that you shouldn't miss out. You can go to www.amazingchallenge.us, and we are starting another season back, will be in 9th of September 2022. So if let's say you want to have tons of fun and network around, and also to be able to overcome your fear in front of the camera and to talk non-stop just like me, you definitely do not want to miss out. And I look forward to see you guys in the amazing challenge then. Take care then. Take care. Bye.